everyone. I'm Representative Harrison. I'm here today to read to you on this great day called Read Across America, dedicated to one of my favorite authors, Dr. Seuss. Today we're going to read Horton Hears a Who, a well-used, loved book. On the 15th of May, in the jungle of Newell, in the heat of the day, in the cool of the pool, he was splashing, enjoying the jungle's great joys, when Horton the elephant heard a small noise. So Horton stopped splashing. He looked towards the sound. That's funny, thought Horton. There's no one around. Then he heard it again, just a very faint yelp, as if some tiny person were calling for help. "I'll help you," said Horton, "but who are you? Where?" He looked and he looked. He could see nothing there but a small speck of dust blowing past through the air. "I say," murmured Horton, "I've never heard tell of a small speck of dust that was able to yell. So you know what I think? Why, I think that there must be someone on top of that very small speck of dust. Some sort of a creature of very small size, too small to be seen by an elephant's eyes. Some poor little person who's shaking with fear that he'll blow in the pool. He has no way to steer. I'll just have to save him because, after all, a person's a person, no matter how small." So gently, and using the greatest of care, the elephant stretched his great trunk through the air, and he lifted the dust speck and carried it over and placed it down safe on a very soft clover. "Humph, humphed a voice. 'Twas a sour kangaroo, and the young kangaroo in her pouch said humph too. Why, that speck is as small as the head of a pin. A person on that? Why, that never has been." "Believe me," said Horton, "I tell you sincerely, my ears are quite keen, and I heard him quite clearly. I know there's a person down there, and what's more, quite likely there's two, even three, even four, quite likely a family, for all that we know, a family with children just starting to grow. So please," Horton said, "as a favor to me, try not to disturb them. Just please let them be." "I think you're a fool," laughed the sour kangaroo, and the young kangaroo in her pouch said, "Me too. You're the biggest blamed fool in the jungle of Newell," and the kangaroos plunged in the cool of the pool. What terrible splashing, the elephant frowned. "I can't let my very small persons get drowned. I've got to protect them. I'm bigger than they." So he plucked up the clover and hustled away. Through the high jungle treetops, the news spread quickly. "He talks to a dust speck. He's out of his head. Just look at him walk with that speck on that flower." And Horton walked worrying almost an hour. "Should I put this speck down?" Horton thought with alarm. "If I do, these small persons may come to great harm. I can't put it down, and I won't after all. A person's a person, no matter how small." Then Horton stopped walking. The speck voice was talking. The voice was so faint he could just barely hear it. "Speak up, please," said Horton. He put his ear near it. "My friend," came the voice, "you're a very fine friend. You've helped all us folks in this dust speck no end. You've saved all our houses, our ceilings and floors. You've saved all our churches and grocery stores." "You mean," Horton gasped, "you have buildings there too?" "Oh yes," piped the voice, "we most certainly do." "I know," called the voice, "I'm too small to be seen, but I'm mayor of a town that is friendly and clean. Our buildings to you would seem terribly small, but to us who aren't big, they're wonderfully tall. My town is called Whoville, for I am a who. who's are all thankful and grateful to you. And Horton called back to the mayor of the town, "You're safe now, don't worry. I won't let you down." But just as he spoke to the mayor of the speck, 3 big jungle monkeys climbed up on Horton's neck. The Wickersham brothers came shouting, "What rot! This elephant's talking to who's who are not. There aren't any who's, and they don't have a mayor, and you're going to stop all this nonsense, so there." They snatched Horton's clover. They carried it off to a black-bottomed eagle named Vladikoff, a mighty strong eagle of very swift wing, and they said, "Will you kindly get rid of this thing?" And before the poor elephant could even speak, the eagle flew off with the flower in his beak. All that late afternoon and far into the night, that black-bottomed bird flapped with wings in fast flight, while Horton chased after with groans over stones that tattered his toenails and battered his bones. He begged, "Please don't harm all my little friends who have as much right to live as us bigger folks do." But far, far beyond him, that eagle kept flapping, and over his shoulder called back, "Quit your yapping. I'll fly the night through. I'm a bird, I don't mind it, and I'll hide this tomorrow where you'll never find it." And at 6:56 the next morning he did it. I'm sure was a terrible place that he hid it. He let that small clover drop somewhere inside of a great patch of clovers 100 miles wide. "Find that," sneered the bird, "but I think you will fail." And he left with a flip of his black-bottomed tail. "I'll find it," cried Horton. "I'll find it or bust. I shall find my friends on my small speck of dust." And clover by clover by clover with care, he picked up and searched them and called, "Are you there?" But clover by clover by clover he found that the one that he sought for was just not around. And by noon poor old Horton, more dead than alive, had picked, searched, and piled up 9,005. Then on through the afternoon, hour after hour, till he found them at last on the 3,000,000th flower. "My friends," cried the elephant, do tell, do tell. Are you safe? Are you sound? Are you whole? Are you well?" From down on the speck came the voice of the mayor. "We've really had trouble, much more than our share. When that black-bottomed birdie let go and we dropped, we landed so hard that our clocks have all stopped. Our teapots are broken, our rocking chairs smashed, and our bicycle tires all blew up when we crashed. So Horton, please," pleaded that voice of the mayor's, "will you stick by us, who's, while we're making repairs?" "Of course," Horton answered, "of course I will stick. I'll stick by you small folks, through thin and through thick." "Humph," humped a voice. "For almost 2 days you've run wild and insisted on chatting with persons who've never existed. Such carryings on in our peaceable jungle, we've had quite enough of your bellowing bungle. And I'm here to state," snapped the big kangaroo, "that your silly nonsensical game is all through." And the young kangaroo in her pouch said, "Me too." With the help of the Wickersham brothers and dozens of Wickersham uncles and Wickersham cousins and Wickersham in-laws, and whose help I've engaged, we're going to be roped and you're going to be caged. And as for your dust speck, bah, that we shall boil in a hot steaming kettle of bezelnut oil. "Boil it," gasped Horton. "Oh, that you can't do. It's all full of persons. They'll prove it to you." Mr. Mayor," Horton called. "Mr. Mayor, I've got to prove now that you really are there. So call a big meeting, get everyone out, make everyone who holler, make every who shout, make every who scream. If you don't, every who is going to end up in a hazelnut stew. And down on the dust speck, the scared little mayor quick called a big meeting in Whoville Town Square, and as people crowded loudly, they cried out in fear, "We are here, we are here, we are here, we are here." The elephant smiled, that was clear as a bell. You kangaroos surely heard that very well. All I heard, snapped the big kangaroo, was the breeze, and the faint sound of wind through the far distance trees. I heard no small voices, and you didn't either, as the young kangaroo in her pouch said, "Me neither." Grab him, they shouted, and cage the big dope. Lasso his stomach with 10 miles of rope. Tie the nuts tight so he'll never shake loose. Then dunk that dumb speck in the hazelnut juice. Horton fought back with great vigor and vim, but the Wickersham gang was too many for him. They beat him, they mauled him, they started to haul him into a cage, but he managed to call to the mayor, "Don't give up. I believe in all of you. A person's a person, no matter how small. And make every small person's will not have to die if you make yourselves heard. So come on now and try." The mayor grabbed a tom-tom, he started to smack it, and all over Whoville they whooped up a racket. They rattled tin kettles, they beat on brass pans, on garbage pail tops, on old cranberry cans. They blew on bazookas and blasted great tubes, on clarinets, oompas, and flutes. Great gusts of loud racket rang high through the air. They rattled and shook the whole sky. And the mayor called up through the howling mad hubbubaloo, "Hey, Horton, how's this? Is our sound coming through?" And Horton called back, "I can hear you just fine, but the kangaroo's ears aren't as strong quite as mine. They don't hear a thing. Are you sure all your boys are doing their best? Are they all making noise? Are you sure every who down in Whoville's is working? Look, through your town, is there anyone shirking?" Through the town rushed the mayor from the east to the west, but everyone seemed to be doing his best. Everyone seemed to be yapping or yipping. Everyone seemed to be beeping or bipping. But it wasn't enough, all this ruckus and roar. He had to find someone to help him make more. He raced through each building. He searched floor to floor. And just as he felt he was getting nowhere and almost about to give up in despair, he suddenly burst through a door, and that mayor discovered one shirker quite hidden away in the Fairfax Apartments, apartment 12J. A very small shirker named Jojo was just standing and bouncing a yo-yo, not making a sound, not a yip, not a chirp. And the mayor rushed inside, and he grabbed the young twerp. And he climbed with the lad up the Eiffelberg Tower. "This," cried the mayor, "is your town's darkest hour. The time for all who have blood that is red to come to the aid of their country," he said. "You've got to make noises in greater amounts. So open your mouth, lad, for every voice counts." Thus he spoke as he climbed. When he got to the top, the lad cleared his throat and he shouted out, "Yop!" And that yop, that one small extra yop, put it over. Finally, at last, from that speck on the clover, their voices were heard. They rang out clear and clean, and the elephant smiled. "Do you see what I mean? They've proved there are persons, no matter how small, and our world was saved by the smallest of all." "How true, yes, how true," said the big kangaroo. "And from now on, you know what I'm going to do? From now on, I'm going to protect them with you." And the young kangaroo in her pouch said, "Me too." From From sun in the summer, from rain when it's fallish, I'm going to protect them, no matter how smallish. So this book, Wild About Animals, is dedicated to our favorite author, Dr. Seuss, because the author of this book loves Dr. Seuss. So, Wild About Animals. It started the summer of 2002 when the Springfield librarian, Molly McGrew, by mistake drove her bookmobile into the zoo. Molly opened the door and let down the stair, turned on the computer, and sat in her chair. At first, all the animals watched from a distance, but Molly could conquer the strongest resistance. By reading aloud from the good Dr. Seuss, she quickly attracted a mink and a moose, a wombat and ornyx, a lemur, a lynx, 8 elephant calves, and a family of skinks. In a flash, every beast in the zoo was stampeding to learn about this new something called reading. Forsaking their niches, their nests, and their nooks, they went wild, simply wild about wonderful books, choosing thin books and fat books and cat in the hat books, and new books and true books and heaps of how-to books. Giraffes wanted tall books and crickets craved small books, while geckos would only read stick-to-the-wall books. The pandas demanded more books in Chinese. Molly filled their requests, always eager to please. She found something waterproof books for the otter. She never went swimming without Harry Potter. Raccoons read alone, and baboons read in bunches, and llamas read dramas while eating their lunches. Hyenas shared jokes with the red-bellied snakes, and they howled and they hissed till their funny bones ached. A tree kangaroo who adored Nancy Drew began solving mysteries right there at the zoo, such as why are the bandicoots books overdue? Gently Molly taught lessons in treating books right, for the boa constrictor squeezed Crictor too tight. Baby bunnies mucked up Goodnight Moon with their paws, giant termites devoured The Wizard of Oz. And Bear's love of books were completely outrageous. They licked all the pictures right off of the pages. Tasmanian devils found books so exciting, soon they had given up fighting for writing. They made up adventures so thrilling and new that the others decided to be authors too. Pythons wrote with their tails, penguins wrote with their bills, and porcupines wrote with their very own quills. At the new insect zoo, bugs were scribbling haiku. The scorpion gave each a stinging review. Here you go, pretentious. A cannibal twig silently devours a leaf, eating, not eaten. A dung beetle, roll a ball of dung. Any kind of poo will do. Baby beetle bed, stinks. Millipede, I dig for treasure in my enchanted castle. A rotten apple. Giant hissing cockroach, hiss, 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 hiss. As the cheetah's new novel began to take shape, he read chapters each night to the Barbary ape. And although the gazelle couldn't spell very well, like everyone else, she had stories to tell. Imagine the hippo's enormous surprise when her memoir was given the Zooliter Prize. With so many new books, Molly knew what to do. She hired 12 beavers, a stork, and a gnu. She built a branch library there at the zoo. Then the animals cried, "We can do it ourselves. We can check the books out. We can put them on shelves." And they did, and they do, up to this very day. 3 cheers for for the Zooberry. When you visit the zoo now, you surely won't mind if the animals seem just a bit hard to find. They are snug in their niches, their nests, and their nooks, going wild, simply wild, about wonderful